host, Johan Matthews. So, for those of you who don't know, today's mini course is being brought to you by the Cooperative Fund of the Northeast. We've been funding cooperatives for the past 50 years. We're a nonprofit community development financial institution, and we serve as an investment opportunity for socially conscious investors. And more recently, we've been doing a lot more courses, workshops, coaching opportunities through our learning team. We have a few members on the call. I'm a member of the learning team. My role there is ecosystem strategy manager. We've also got Carolyn on the call, Carl on the call, our co-op coach and our program director. So give it up for those guys that are running behind the scenes. If you ever are interested in receiving one-on-one coaching, we do that all the time. Our team is providing no-cost business support to hundreds of co-op curious entrepreneurs and co-ops across the Northeast. So reach out at coopfund.com/coaching. So today we're doing a session around business models, and we also have opportunities outside of this session, looking at a weekly office hours for folks who want ongoing advising regarding the course content topics we covered today. We also have an opportunity for folks who want more in-depth coaching, no cost. If you're emerging or established, either way, you can sign up for a coaching call with Carla at this link. And if you ever just want to talk to somebody, connect to a peer mentor, perhaps a service provider in your area, reach out, we may be able to assist. So today, as I mentioned, we're going to be covering co-op business models. Last time we covered how to design your own co-op using a co-op design canvas. And next time we're going to cover co-op ownership and governance. So as a reminder, today we're going to be recording this session. If you have any objections to that, let us know. Come off camera. Some folks may also have artificial intelligence capturing notes. If you have any objections to that, make a note of that in the chat or come off mute. Let us know. Give you guys a second. But we're going to record this session so we can send it out to you. You can have that for future viewing or for folks who missed it. Give a second to make sure there's no issues. All right. So I want to know who's in the room. So I want to invite you guys to drop who you are, if you have a co-op, and where you're coming from, what state, maybe specifically. So your name, your co-op, your state, drop that in the chat. We're happy to see who's in the room and give you guys a chance to see each other. Maybe you can reach out, maybe you're in the same state. So take time to introduce yourself a little bit, okay? All right. So as I mentioned, we're going to be running a conversation on co-op business models today. We'll spend some time doing a co-op curious review of last session. We'll also dive into our key content. What is a business model and how will you co-create value and create value in your co-op? So we'll be doing for about 90 minutes, running until about 1:30. All right. If you have any questions along the way, make a note of it. I'll stop and ask, but at the end, you can ask that question as well. So I think with that, we can dive in. So on our last call, we discussed what is a co-op. And so I want to give us a chance to reflect on some of these important topics and key terms. So co-op or cooperative, I ask you guys to give me the simplest definition you can, and I've tried to give you one as well. Co-op is a member-owned business, right? It could be members of a worker-owned business, or members of a resident-owned business, members of a consumer-owned business, but it's a member-owned business. And those members democratically operate that business. That means one person, one vote, or member benefit, right? For the benefit of those who call themselves members. Membership means you're a part of the whole. So how do you become a part of the whole in the context of business ownership? Another key term, entrepreneur. Again, how do we define this for our 7th grade, 8th grade year old cousin, right? Someone who solves a problem for a group of people and gets paid for it. That's how I like to define entrepreneurship when I'm working with young people. I think this makes it crystal clear. Target market, who are we talking about? That group of people with the problem we're trying to solve, right? And in the case of the co-op, it can be members of the co-op, whether again, your workers trying to create a space where you're not subject to wage theft or hours that are inconsistent, whether you're members of a community with low access to housing and you're trying to come together with a group of 5, 10, 100 people to buy a building and you all be renters of the building you own, or customers, right? You're trying to create a food co-op and you want access to healthy food, but the rest of the community can shop there too. Who are the people with the problem we're trying to solve? For members, customers, community. And then finally, value proposition, right? The benefits that a target market can expect from your service or product. So these are some key terms we'll be going over again today, using a lot. And I really want us to just have this as context before we move forward. So today we're going to be talking about what is a business model. Before I dive into that, are there any questions around some of these terms, any issues? Didn't expect any. So now it's your turn. What is a co-op business model? You know, what is a business model? What is a co-op business model? I want you to get your pen and paper out and I want you to write it down for yourself. What is a business model? All right, so I'm gonna give you guys 15 to 20 seconds to write it down on your piece of paper. Think about it. What are we talking about? It's a term that's used a lot today, but define it for yourself. All right. If you've got a definition you can give to your 8th grade cousin, I want you to, or I'm going to invite you to drop it in the chat. You can pour that into the well, see if others can drink from that, or you can put it in the vault, pull it out whenever you need it. So I'm going to give anyone with the inkling to share the opportunity to do so. What is it called, business model? Drop it in the chat if you have a definition you'd like to share. Otherwise, you now have your own definition regardless. One of you got a definition out there. Come on. What I want to do and how I plan to earn a living doing it. I think that's very important, right? What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? Make that, and how are you going to make money from it? So that's key, right? And that's maybe pertaining to the business itself. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys space to hold on to your models or share them. But I try to define it in pretty business term, textbooky, but I think it's really important. So it's a framework describing how a co-op creates, delivers, and captures value. So it's an idea, right? It could be on a paper towel, it could be on your computer, really doesn't matter. It answers these basic questions, right? So who are you creating value for? Right, as we mentioned before, a co-op could be creating value for its members, customers, community members. Who are you really creating value for? Traditional businesses may be preoccupied with creating value for investors, right? Owners. Who are you creating value for? And what are you doing to create value for that person, right? What problems are you solving? What products and services are you offering? How do those products and services propose to add value to that customer, right? What's the value proposition, right? The benefits that the customer, the who, can expect from your product or service, the what. It also looks at the how, right? How are you delivering that value, that product or service to that customer, right? How are you delivering that problem solved? And so now you're looking at the value chain, right? I'm sourcing my ingredients from South America, right? I have a coffee shop. That's where I'm getting my coffee beans, right? And then I'm ordering them I'm bringing them here. Get my paper cuts from Oregon. I'm getting my napkins from downtown. What is the chain of value that I'm connecting with to deliver this value? And why, right? Why is this going to work? Why is this important for the customer? Why is it important for me? How do I capture value, right? How do I generate a profit, earn my living, keep this business sustainable? So that's a business model, right? And for a co-op, it's slightly more nuanced, but it's relatively the same, right? Who are we delivering value for, right? What are we doing to deliver that value, right? What are the proposed benefits of our solution? How will we get that benefit to the customers? And why is this going to work out? Why is this going to be a profitable enterprise? So that's a business model. So we are going to be looking at a tool in order to capture this on screen. When you're creating a business model, you might be by yourself, you might be with a team of people if you're creating a co-op. You need to be able to visualize that in order to make sure everyone gets it. So a tool we can use for that is the business model canvas. So the co-op business model canvas is slightly edited, right? Just looking at the key concerns that I think a cooperative or co-op curious entrepreneur might really need to focus on. So as with the business model triangle and circles that I just did, we're going to start with customers. We're going to start with what customer needs exist, right? Who are these customers we're thinking about? We might segment them geographically. So I'm looking at folks where I live in the Northeast in New York State. It might be segregated by demographic characteristics. I'm looking for a younger population under 25 and older, or working age, right? 25 to 45. I'm looking at specific demographic concerns, right? Sex, age, gender, income, class, those types of things. I might segment them according to behavioral profiles, right? What are they likely to do? Are these folks consistent shoppers? Are they looking at luxury products? Are they looking at the cheapest products? They're looking at saving their money. What are the different type of behaviors and values they have? I might segment them according to psychographical profiles. I might think, how does this person identify? Are they more liberal, progressive? Are they a hipster, right? Are they a hippie? Who is this person? I might think about ideal customer and really think about what are the different segments that I want to serve. And I might think about the relationship I'm going to have with them. This customer could be a member of the co-op, right? If you're a member of a food co-op, maybe it's a 500 of you, 1,000 of you own equivalent of a grocery store, and you go there and shop every time you need groceries. That sustains that business. You're an owner and a customer, a member and a customer. Maybe you're just a one-off customer. You live around the block. You're not too interested in co-ops, but you go here to shop every day anyway, right? Maybe it's a wholesale provider, right? It's a local coffee shop. You get some great dried mango. They buy that, put it on their pastries, right? What is that customer relationship? You might also think about the customer channel. How are we delivering that value to our customers, right? If we're a coffee shop, again, maybe you can go online and pre-order, right? Maybe you can go to our social media and interact with us. Maybe you can't order there. You just get to interact with us there. Maybe you can. Maybe we have an in-person store that you can attend and buy your cup of coffee, right? And you also want to think about your competitors, something people don't often think about, right? What is unique about you, right? In the eyes of this customer segment. There's going to be direct competition, other coffee shops, for example, and there's going to be indirect competition, maybe a tea shop, right? These are other places that someone might spend their disposable income to get a drink, or third space to hang out and meet someone for a business meeting, right? If you're a bowling alley, your direct competition might be other bowling alleys. Indirect competition might be other nighttime entertainment spaces where people can spend their discretionary income. So you have to think about that. What is unique about what you have to offer in contrast to the other options of the customer in mind, right? So that is looking at this who aspect of things, right? And now you're looking at this what. What benefits are we proposing to provide for these customers, right? What is the unique benefit that we can provide that they can expect from our products and services? First, we come up with our products and we have to understand what is unique about our products in contrast to the existing options they have, right? What do they do when they feel thirsty? Do they automatically go to a coffee shop? Maybe there's no coffee shops around, they go to a tea shop. That's how they solve that problem. What can we do to uniquely respond to those concerns that they have, those pains that they have? In a co-op, you also have to think about your member value proposition. For your members, you are going to want to create a sense of why am I here? What benefits am I going to be able to expect from being a part of this co-op? Right? They're going to be integral in providing the service. If it's a worker-owned business, right? Your workers or your members, or perhaps as it pertains to a consumer co-op, your members are your consumers. So they're going to want to feel like membership is meaningful. How do you design and think about that? Now you're thinking about your how dimension, right? So what are the key activities that you're engaging in? This coffee shop, we're making cups of coffee, we're ordering coffee when we run out, we're serving folks at their tables, we're cleaning up. What are these key activities and what are the resources to do it, right? What does it take, right? Those raw materials, those machines, those spaces and services, right? These key partnerships. Who are your service providers, right? Accountant, lawyer, insurance guy, different partnerships that you're going to need on a consistent basis. It might even be a strategic partnership, like with a university. And your students come here, I'll give them a discount, right? What are these key partnerships? And finally, on the house side, kind of the governance structure. You might have members who are intending to benefit financially after we make a profit in this business. Maybe we have investors who are intending to benefit financially. What is their financial and decision-making rights in this business model, right? You might say in a co-op context, we're not going to give investors a vote, but they're preferred shareholders, so they get paid first. Different things like that come up. How does your governance structure affect your business model, right? What are the financial rights of members and investors? And then we're down into an extension of how, but connecting to that why. What is this cost structure? What are our startup costs? If we have to make a shopping list, everything we need to get started for day one, what is that? Okay, we've gotten started. What are the fixed costs? What are the costs that don't change no matter what? Rent, insurance, perhaps your website fees. No matter what's going on in the business, I got to pay these fees, right? Fees to the landlord, fees to my website host, and so on. Maybe some costs change, they're variable. Every time you sell a cupcake, you bought the dough, the cupcake cup, the napkin, right? They're variable costs. So the more cupcakes you sell, the more napkins, cupcake cups, and dough you have to have bought or will have to buy. Or maybe they're seasonal. You live in the Northeast, it snows, you're gonna have to clean that snow in the wintertime versus in the summertime, right? Seasonal costs. So what's the cost structure for this business? And similarly, what's the revenue structure? What's the revenue streams? What are the products or services? What are the prices of these services? And what's the margin? Meaning, how much do they cost you to buy the ingredients in that cup of coffee? And how much are you selling it for? It costs you $1 to make a cup of coffee, okay? And you're selling it for $3, right? You've got a pretty large margin, right? Maybe you're selling it for $1.50, right? 50% margin. So what is that margin and how many times would your customer be buying that product or service, right? On a day-to-day basis, 20 cups, on a week basis, 100, on a month basis, 400 to 500, on a year basis. We can look at volume across time and think about how to predict our revenue on, using that type of thinking. And then finally, payment systems, right? How are we actually going to accept money? Is it cash? Is it a debit card reader, right? Do we accept EBT and food stamps, other benefits? Do we accept other ways of paying, checks, invoices, right, for certain customers? What are the ways people can pay us? At the end, you'll get a link to this canvas and you'll be able to iterate and work on this yourself. Today, we'll also give you a link to play with. But before we do that, I'd like to make sure there aren't any questions. And then I'd love to invite up a friend of ours and a Co-op Navigator Fellow and a co-op member owner of Brooklyn Packers, Steph Wiley. To join and share his experience developing business models. So any questions on this before we move forward? All right, seeing some head shakes. So please, Steph, we're gonna spotlight you, but we're gonna talk with this in the background. So how you doing?
Hey friends, how y'all doing?
Want to invite you to kind of just share kind of quick background for yourself, and then share a little bit about your business model development journey with Brooklyn Packers. So tell us about Brooklyn Packers and how did you really approach creating a business model for this enduring company?
Yeah, sure. Again, Steph Wiley. I am founder, owner of Brooklyn Packers. Will be a 10-year-old business next year. We are a Black-owned, operated cooperative in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. We focus on food distribution. So we buy pallets and pallets of food and distribute it to organizations, mainly pantries, like fresh food from in season, mostly Black and brown, queer trans owned farms in the Northeast, Hudson Valley. And we distribute it again, mainly to pantries at this time, but also like other kinds of organizations that have food programs. And we also have a retail component. So we have a digital farm share. It's called Brooklyn Supported Agriculture. You can go online and look that up, brooklynsupportedagriculture.com. And we also have a retail store that we're just about to renovate right now. Over the next couple of weeks. We have a small market that we do limited hours, but we're building out a full-scale kind of market that people will be able to come in and buy mostly Black-owned products in Black and brown-owned products. And that's what we do for money. And then behind the scenes, we do a lot of advocacy for farmers and also for co-ops. And I learned a lot of what I've been doing through experience, but also through the Co-op Navigator Fellowship and other programs that have led me to really believe in the co-op structure and the way that we can have like true economic liberation, in our lifetime. So yeah. The model. So
no, that's great. I mean, it's the context. You're the context for the model. So
yeah.
the question is kind of what was your approach in developing this, and how is it different? I'll add on to other businesses you've started because you're a seasoned entrepreneur.
Yeah, I've owned other businesses. Definitely, I've had, traditional kind of businesses, and then that I've had like a business partner or business partners. And it definitely is different than my experience as in founding a co-op and operating a cooperative. I guess I would say, like, for me, there's always been a values component to whatever I start. whether it's by myself or with someone, like, it's like, why are we doing this? And then, like, why am I doing this? And then if it's more than me, then why are we doing this? And why are we doing this together? Um, and so I try to instill the values of like working together, um, in all the work that we do. As you probably can figure out, like everything that we're doing is relational. And so how do we build in the values of cooperation and the relational aspect into our business? And I think just like being a cooperative is the way that I've found, um, the best way to do that for me, in my experience, and also, I don't know, just that's the best way to do it for a community, you know. So that's kind of why I believe in cooperatives. I think I believe in cooperatives as life, not just like kind of an economic or financial model. I think it's the way that we are naturally wired to help each other and to be doing things together. I think we've had to like relearn in this kind of like capital system that, we have to relearn how to work together for real. And so yeah, I mean, we're basically a food-based cooperative, and whenever you are dealing with food, um, you're dealing with a lot of like opportunity to like be together and work together, but also you're dealing with a lot of like historic issues around food and where food comes from. And so, um, we take that, we keep that in mind in all the decisions that we make and when we're trying to build out the model. So really, we're trying to figure out about access. Like, how does anybody have access to food? You can go to your grocery store on the corner, or maybe you can't go to your grocery store on the corner because there's no grocery store. Um, and then if there is a grocery store, is there healthy food? And if there is healthy food, where is it coming from? There's all these like layers that you go to. And then if you can't get to the grocery store, how do you get it? And do you get it delivered? Okay. How are you getting it delivered? How much does that cost? It's like all these little things things that seem little, but actually you have to build a system to support all the ways that people get food. And that's what we want to do. It's like, how do people get food? Well, you can shop in person, you can get it delivered, you can use an app, you can go to a website, you can do all these things. But at the very baseline of it, like how are we making things accessible to everyone, not just the folks that have money or have expendable income or believe in organic or believe in no pesticides or whatever the things that people believe in. We want to make food accessible to everyone. Um, and so from the very beginning, we were trying to figure out like how can we do this so it works for community and also for ownership. And sometimes that's a delicate balance, trying to do what's right for community and also do right for a business. Uh, because if the business can't survive and like your idea is not viable, or it's like really a lot of it's just about systems. Like, do you have the right system to support this idea? And so building out a model that has a system that makes sense for community and for ownership. That is the thing that we have been working on for the last 9 years, probably more like 10 years in pre-development. So with that, we're still going through it. I mean, there's so many things that have happened in the last 10 years, including the pandemic, that really made us had to pivot in a lot of ways. And so you really want to have a model that is sound, like at the baseline sound, but also you want to have something that as entrepreneurs, we're solving problems. So we want to be able to be flexible, and take chances. I mean, you're already taking a chance as opening a business. So as an entrepreneur, you have to be used to the ups and downs, the roller coaster of business ownership. And also knowing that there's supports out there, like CFNE, or like wherever you are, your local cooperative developer, or your local community bank or credit union, or any of these financial institutions that can help you. So yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Definitely included and much more. So I want to take a risk and ask the audience a question, because something I feel like you're getting at is this value proposition. You know, you're thinking about how people access food and just the process of accessing food, right? So people, I assume in Brooklyn and the areas that you live, and then the food, right? The products and the delivery of that. So the question to the audience, the trick question is, what should the entrepreneur focus on first, right? Should it be the product or should it be the customer? So trick question of the day. A for product, B for customer. Come on, you got 5 seconds. Just drop in an answer. Both we got. Come on, let it in. A or B or both. Steph's got his hand raised, so we're gonna hear from Steph right after this. Okay. So some folks are still chewing this over. I think it's a great question. Steph, what do you think?
People might not agree with me, but I think you should focus on your business partners.
Oh, interested. See, trick question. We got all types of answers coming. Okay, tell us more.
When you're dealing with, especially people, we have these ideas. We're like, yeah, let's do this together. And a lot of times it's people who don't have business experience. A lot of times it's people who have been friends, sometimes for a short time, sometimes for a long time. And a lot of times you might not know how someone that you've been friends with forever is going to react under stressful circumstances. Like conflict is inevitable in life, but also in business. And when you start introducing like money and decision making and things like that, it could be tough relationally. So my advice to anyone who's starting a business, especially a cooperative business, is if you're going to have business partners, then know your business partners. Like really be honest about like what triggers you and what you have issues with. Like what is the thing that sets you off? And then you can really kind of, because when it's good, it's great. It's like, ooh, we're doing this. Absolutely, 100%. We're going for it together. It feels great. But when things get tough, like, the first couple of years of your business, you might not be making any money. I can tell you, I made $300 a week for a long time, for a long, long time. And if you know anything about living in New York City, that don't work. I would definitely say like choose your partners wisely, because it can come back to bite you later. And from experience, it has like a few times. So yeah, take that how you want to and like use it, but just think about it as you are building your business and the folks that are around you. Because at the end of the day, you want to have good relations with everybody. Maybe this partner is not the right one, and maybe this person's not. Maybe there's somebody, but I think you don't want to lose relationships over business, over a good idea. You don't want to get into like legal trouble. You don't want any of that with community. So yeah.
Gotcha. So I want to follow up with that, but before I do, to get back to the poll, I felt like in your comments around how you went about creating business, you said the answer that I was, secretly hoping for, which was the problem that we're trying to solve. So it's how do I access food? And you're looking at producers, black and brown, you're looking at people in the city, and you're fixated on that problem. So if there was an answer, it's not, but you came up with the other answer, which is the next step, which is the member value proposition, right? What does it mean to be in business together, in a co-op context or otherwise? And I think this question over here, governance structure, how do you structure the business so that members have a clear. So I want to, that seems like it's one of the most challenging things you've encountered. How have you addressed it at the times that you've encountered it? And how would you now, looking back?
In the co-op ecosystem, there's a lot of help with like conflict resolution and like there's resources available to help people through, and groups through, businesses through some of these challenges. And it didn't exist in the same way that it does now when we started. So I would say like this is a really great time to like take advantage of all of those kinds of resources, all the resources that are available now because they weren't always available. And that's really what we have, an organization that if we need that kind of resource that we can call on them, and they're available for us. And so I would say even when you're developing the business, like to maybe even reach out to one of those resources because it's inevitably it's going to come up in small but also sometimes in really big ways that can affect um, how viable your business is actually. And I can also actually speak to the customer value proposition that you are getting to is like, the unique benefits of our business is that we are a Black owned business. I think that benefits us. We source from Black and brown, queer, trans farms when they're in season. It's the differentiation that sets us apart from other businesses that might do similar or even the same thing. And so if people value supporting underserved communities, but also buying from underserved communities that farm, which there are a lot more now, then people will choose us, even if it's a little more expensive, even if it's not Amazon level kind of access, even if it's not like free delivery, even if we're not shipping, across the state, it's like all these other things. And we're purposely local. We want to be in our community with our neighbors. We want people to see what we're doing. We hire from our community. We want to make owners, not just staff members. We want people to not just survive. We want people to thrive. So we think like this, the way that we are building our business even now, is very intentionally local and small. And I think that has been one of the things that has allowed us to survive in the way that we have, even through all the changes in the food landscape, the business landscape, and even like through the pandemic. And so I think that's allowed us to be quite resilient.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Steph. I'm gonna open it up to the audience if they have any questions before we move in and give them the opportunity to work on this a little bit. So I'll give you guys a minute if there is anyone who has a question they'd like to pose to Steph before we move on to the next activity.
I have a little technical question.
Go ahead.
Are you just distribution or are you working on the production side as well? Or the processing, sorry.
Yeah, right now we only do distribution and like direct to consumer and also to, bulk to organizations. Production is something that's attractive, but also it's something that other people can do better than us. And it also is very expensive. So we have a couple of partners out there that are in development that will probably come online the end of this year in the Hudson Valley. One being called Crop Shop, who's in Kingston, and there's another one called Season Gives, which is, I believe, they're in Ulster. And so they both do production in different ways. So
Awesome.
yeah, so it's not, it's attractive, but in the city it's expensive. Maybe we can do some kind of like small scale production in the city using other people's resources. And that's the other thing, you don't have to own everything.
Yeah.
You can use other people's resources. But it's very expensive. So
Yes, yes, it is. I'm in Albany, so I can make it to those. I can look them up. Thank you so much.
yeah, no problem.
Right. Well, if you have any more questions, drop it in the chat. If you want us to pass it along, do so. Tell us. Appreciate your stuff. You know what I mean? Big ups. OG
Yeah.
in the game.
Thanks, y'all. Thanks, John. Good to
No
see
problem.
y'all. Good to see Carla, David, Carolyn, my folks.
Yes, sir. Yep. And so I love that comment that you gave around finding the resources in your area, something the Co-op Navigator Fellowship was created to respond to, recognizing not every neighborhood has their co-op service providers on hand. We created a fellowship as part of the Cooperative Fund of the Northeast and in partnership with many other homegrown service providers out there in those environments to think about how do we engage the next generation of co-op service providers who have local knowledge, business knowledge, organizing knowledge, but really can benefit from supporting folks who are interested in co-op. So Steph is one of those. Give thanks to Steph for sharing his knowledge today. So now we're going to invite everyone to engage with this tool, the co-op business model canvas. I'm going to drop a link in the chat. We're going to open up the breakout rooms. And so folks can go into breakout rooms and kind of wrestle with it. One thing I want you to do, you're going to have 10 minutes, a little bit extra to play with because of settling in and all of that, maybe 12 or so. What is the most difficult, frictionful, or confusing aspect of this? So try to work through one for the group you're interested in as quickly as possible, and then come to a consensus with your folks as to which one of these topics in the canvas, which one of the squares is most frictionful or confusing for you. We can maybe workshop some of that. So we should see the breakout rooms opening soon.
Yeah, breakout rooms are open, so if anybody is having trouble pulling them up or getting into them, just let me know. But if you go down to the bottom of your screen, you should see a breakout room link or the 3 little dots and click on that.
And since they're kind of fewer than intended here, let me see these breakout rooms. We can still let people join. We got 3 in housing co-op, 1 in worker. So we don't want anyone necessarily by themselves, but we'll go in there and keep them company. It's a worker in housing has got all the attention. It's good.
Johan, since people seem to be going to worker and housing, you want to take housing, I'll take worker.
Sounds good.
Sweet. See you on the flip side.
Actually, it's Carl. See you there. I was going to say, Carla, do you want to? Oh, no, Carl's not here. Okay. Join. Oh, Carla's already in work. All right, I'll join her then. See you over there. 10 minutes.
A group of residents that feel like they're being treated unfairly by their landlord, they may have something like that. They said they didn't own it together. It's all over the place. People together, start a business together, they use our business to make them out. And we are the member of a housing co-op, right? A business owned by the resident, you know, pay ourselves for the service we would have paid a landlord for otherwise. It can be that simple. Several of those exist in Albany. They might even still enter the
House hacking, yeah, they call it house hacking, yeah.
It can be that simple, or it can be more complex. We're gonna buy a plot of land, and it's gonna have 5 different units on it, and 3 houses, right? And now
All right. So, Asia, were you in that room by yourself? Asia? Okay, it's just occupied. I saw her in one room by herself. I was like, why? Anyway, after the fact. So how was that for folks? Just giving folks a chance to think, what was challenging, what was clear, you know, consider it for yourself or come off mute and share it briefly.
I really enjoyed the breakout sessions. I got some more clarification on approach and structure. And I went for the housing breakout session room. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was very informative in that small period of time that we endured.
David? Oh, no.
Yeah, I'm
You walked
not
away.
sure how to say it. Yeah, it was fruitful because just the Carolines know so much about how about how these things go around. So it was very informative, and we still feel that we even need more and want more.
All right, definitely. So this is not something you can do in 10 minutes. In fact, it's iterative. You try it, go test it, then you come back, revisit it. The tool that you have, which is the Google Slide sheet that I'll share with you guys, you have the link, it'll be included in the presentation. Make copies, right? You just keep duplicating and changing bit by bit what are, the things that aren't working. And so change one thing, you're doing some improvements, right? Whether you change the customers that you're targeting, the products or services you're offering, the way you're going to access the value chain, your suppliers and your production methods, or even how you capture value, the ways that you're making money from this. You change any one of them, you're improving. You change any two of those things, you're innovating. You're creating pretty drastic change in your business. So you want to practice iterating on those four questions and move things forward that way, bit by bit. All right.
I can say it was great. It was really helpful. Carolyn, I think just the language, like just hearing the language around cooperatives, at this like structural level has been really, really helpful. Just things that are kind of obvious, but yeah, when you have the language to go along with it, it just is really supportive, like the simplest thing. So that's been really helpful. And it allowed me to get clarity on something that as a cooperative, we really need to get clear on, which is the distinction between our customers and our members. And based on what Carolyn shared, it sounds like we're kind of operating a little bit in a hybrid space. But yeah, so that's just like a critical point that we're at right now. So
Excellent. Fantastic. All right, cool. So I'm going to keep going with the presentation, kind of some last considerations, and then maybe we'll have some time for any final questions should they come up. So, a key and central aspect to the business model canvas is this value proposition canvas, right? It's a separate tool. There'll be a link included in the presentation, but it tries to simplify this process of understanding what benefit am I providing to the intended customer segment. So you think about who this customer is and what jobs or purposes they have over here. It might be functional, right? If you're doing a travel service, and the functional job is customers want to travel, right? They may have emotional jobs, problems they're trying to solve, which is I need to feel relaxation, I need to rejuvenate. They may have social one. I really want to be around new people, having new experiences socially, right? What are the problems they're trying to solve? Their jobs. And you try to think about what are the pain points in trying to achieve these outcomes that I'm looking for and trying to travel and trying to feel relaxed and trying to feel like I'm in a new place with new people, right? What are the things, right? It might be 2-week vacation. I only got 2 weeks. It might be I don't got no money, right? I got no job. It might be, I don't have any friends to travel with, right? And then you might think, what are the things that help them move forward to achieve these concrete benefits, right? It might be things like traveling in groups, right? It might be things such as when I get there, there's a warm cookie waiting for me, right, at the hotel. It might be many different types of things. And then on the product side, I'm thinking, what is my product, right? You might have an idea, a hypothesis. I'm going to create a travel service because I think the social piece is the most painful pain. So I'm going to do group traveling and make sure everyone has a cookie, right? So my game creators are going to be traveling in groups, making sure there's a warm cookie on arrival, right? My pain relievers are actually speaking to that same thing. Whether it's easy to find a group, right? We match you with people who are familiar with your particular travel preferences, right? Really doesn't matter. An example I like to use and kind of seeing the difference between game creators and pain relievers is that the pain reliever stops the problem from happening and the way that you try to pursue stopping these problems. It's like if it's Spotify, for example, music player, I didn't want to have to go all over my computer's files to look for songs and name them properly. Spotify helps me listen to my music in one place. So it's relieving that pain. While the game creators will be extra things they're doing, such as having a weekly spotlight or new discover functions where you can discover new music that are similar to your own taste. So you want to stop pains and you want to create gains for this intended customer. And so in this particular deck, you can use something like this. Thinking about cooperators, we use this to think about what do we design to serve the cooperators out there in the Northeast as a learning team, right? We're thinking about people having problems formalizing co-ops, connecting to relevant resources, creating community. What are their pains, right? They're not sure how to keep going. Maybe it's difficult to keep a group together. They're not sure what they don't know. There's trust issues. What are some of the things that are going to make it feel really worth it? We can make money from this, right? I have a livelihood. I know how to create better workplace conditions, maybe as a result of being in a co-op. So even if I leave it and I go into the workforce, I know what it means to be an empowered employee or feeling connected to someone they know they can help, right? These are some of the gains and pains. And we're thinking about what are we creating to respond to this, right? We want to make sure they know there's capital out there, right? We can lend to them. If you want to create better working conditions and you want to know that information, templates, right? Can you create connections to peers? What are some of their pains? Not sure how to keep going? Okay, you can get a coach, right? We have co-op coaching, access to reliable information. They're feeling like they're missing something. Here's a list of resources. It's on our website. Check it out, right? Don't have trust in that group. Not sure how to cultivate trust. How do you create accountability buddies? Things like that. So this is one way you can approach that. And it's very important to keep it real simple. Who are your customer? What are their problems? And how does our product or service respond to their problems? What's painful for them? What's worth it for them? How are we helping to make that happen? So this is just a quick example using the CFNE learning team. Once you have that, you know how to articulate your value proposition. The other piece that we discussed, the value chain. So the value proposition is who and what, right? Who's our customer? What are we providing to them? What value are we proposing? The value chain is now looking at how will we provide value to that customer. So now we might think of those inputs. We got a coffee shop, right? We got to get coffee beans, cups, napkins, other things like that. We got to produce the coffee, right? In our coffee shop with our coffee makers and grinders, right? And our servers. We got to market and access customers, right? With the website, with other ways of interacting with them, right? Where we getting our flyers from and so on. And then we got to deliver it. Who's delivering, right? Is it servers? Maybe we're a wholesale company. We have to access the post office or rent vans or own our vans. And then the outcomes, right? What happens after a customer has completed their order, right? They get it, they drink it, they throw that cup in the garbage. Maybe there's more you can do, right? There's outputs for your business, right? You have those coffee grinds. What can you do with that, right? And so at each step of your value chain, the ways that show you how to get the value you're trying to offer, you might want to assess that. What are the vulnerabilities of my coffee supplier, right? Maybe there's, Trump doing something, right? Blocking, creating tariffs, whatever. That might stop me from being able to import my coffee beans, right? Is that country on that list? What about production, right? COVID is happening. We can't go into the shop. How can we produce given those conditions? Marketing, right? There's a blackout, or the people who you're trying to reach, they aren't online as much. Maybe it's an older population, maybe it's a younger population, and so on and so forth. And with each of these vulnerabilities, you can think of strategies. How do we respond to the situation where there are tariffs and we can't access our previous raw materials as cost effectively, right? What can we do? What can we do around production, right? Again, if we can't go to the office, how can we produce these copies and get it to our customers, right? All the way down. So this is kind of another simple way to think about that how, right? You know who you're trying to serve and you understand what you're trying to serve them with value. How will we do it, right? And so you go through this value chain and try to understand the full picture of getting from point A to point B as far as raw materials to the finished product. And maybe you're a little more thoughtful. Now you're doing kind of a circular economy. You turn the value chain into a circle, and now that coffee grind, you think, who wants that? Farmers who are trying to do something to their soil. So now you have another revenue option or a social impact option to take your coffee grinds to local farmers who think it could be useful to them in some context, for example, right? So you can think about how to connect your outputs, whether it's operational outputs or customer waste, right? Customer, instead of taking that coffee cup and throwing it in the garbage, bringing your reusable coffee cup. Now you have a way to save money, right? You sell them the very nice coffee cup, and they come every day with the very nice coffee cup, and you never have to pay as much money for those disposable ones again, for example. So you might think of how to innovate at your value chain. Well, now is the part that people are mostly in business for, which is thinking about what is this financial returns. You've got your cooperative, it's operating effectively enough to make a net profit. So what do you do with that net profit? Some of it you might pay out to shareholders if you have investors who are not members and they've loaned you money or invested money in you. Most of it you will try to allocate to your members, right? In a dividend or refund. If our business makes $10,000 this year, right? It cost $100,000 to operate, and we earned 110,000. 110 from 100, 10,000. We've got $10,000 left in net profit. Some might pay back to preferred shareholders. Some might get given out to our current members in a dividend or refund form in a cooperative. That's called patronage. The way you distribute profits in a cooperative is not based on how much money you've invested necessarily. It's based on how well you've used the co-op. So if you're a food co-op, right, you sell food to your members. How much food did that member buy? Maybe Susie bought 100 and Tim bought 1,000. So she's got 100 points. She's got 1,000 points. You've accounted for that in your system with the member ID, and it determines the proportion of that refund that they're entitled to. Maybe some of it's not allocated. So you put it over here. It goes into your equity, right? Your long-term ownership funds that you owe to members at some point. If you allocate that dividend, there's IRS rules that you might follow to get the tax treatment that's designed for cooperatives, right? There's a preferable tax treatment that you can access if you create your allocations, if you distribute those profits in a way that's aligned with how the IRS expects you to. If you do it in those expectations, along with those expectations, right? That's a qualifying notice. There's certain conditions you have to meet. A minimum is going to be in cash. Maximum is going to be able to be retained by the co-op, right? You pay your members, they get that payment. If it's non-qualified, you might do so in order to delay a tax treatment for a member or for other tax strategic reasons. This is more something you work on with your bookkeeper, your accountant, and you try to give everyone a stable understanding, right? It's a little geeky. People might have a lot of questions, but ultimately, what are you doing with this net profit? How do we get it paid to members or put inside of the co-op's account to capture that value, to keep that value for member return later on? You will also, and if you want to capture value, use an income statement, right? So the income statement's got the name of the organization at the top. It's got your type of report. In this case, it's a profit and loss or an income statement. It's got your date and your period. It's got whether it's in cash basis, which is how most people think about money. I made $50 today, I spent $50 today, or an accrual. I provided a service, but we got an invoice and we won't be paid for a month or 2 or 3, but we still count it, right? We didn't get the cash, but we still counted it. And then if it's actual, looking at actual performance historically, or it's pro forma, looking at projections going ahead into this year, next year. So at the top, you've got your money coming in, your revenue, right? We sold a lot of cupcakes and coffee this year, $250,000 worth, but we had to pay $150,000 for those cups, the cookie batter, the cupcake batter, all of those things, right? And now we know we got 100,000 left. We sold $250,000 worth of cupcakes. It costs us 150 to do so. We got $100,000 left in gross profit. That's profit that we can put in pockets? No, we actually got to pay our bills with that, our operation expenses. We got rent, insurance, marketing, various service providers, legal. All of these things we got to pay. And maybe we've got some money left over after we pay all our fixed costs, our operating expenses. We got $13,000 left. Excellent. We get to put that in our pocket. Oh, we got some other money. The local municipal authorities have a facade grant. They give us $6,000 because we improved that building in downtown Schenectady, wherever you live. So now we got 19,000. Once we pay our tax, we got 13,000 again, and we're all good. So thinking about how money flows through the business. You made it rain with them cupcakes, and it's got to make a stop in every community, right? At your products, for your profit margin, at operations, for the factory, and then you figure out what's left over from that. Another document you might use to capture value or demonstrate how you're capturing value, that money is flowing through the business, is your balance sheet. It's got all the same information, name, type report, date, whether it's accrual, and whether it's an actual performer. And now you're looking at, instead of revenue or income, money coming into the business, and expenses, money being paid out to the business, you're looking at how money is accumulating in the business. So you're looking at assets, right? That is looking at what you own. That might be cash, we own a bank account. It might be accounts receivables, people owe us some money, we own that. It might be investments, it might be property, equipment, those types of things. And you can consider the ones you can sell within a year. Your cash, that's easy to sell. You might have some stocks, easy to sell, versus fixed assets, who might be harder to sell. Long-term property like a building and land and things like that. And so those kind of larger assets you put in the fixed assets category. These are things you own. And current assets, things you own, but can be sold quickly. And then you have your liabilities. This is people you owe money to, right? You might owe your vendors, right? You might owe them for coffee beans they sold you, right? You bought it in advance and you're going to pay later on, right? It might be a mortgage on the coffee shop that you're renting or owning, right? And then you have same idea, current versus long-term, right? Is it able to be paid in this year, or is it something paid over many years? And then you have your equity. What's left in our member accounts and our capital accounts? What's left in our retained earnings, right? Money that's being kept after we generate net income year after year. And this current year's net income. And so there's a formula here, right? It's assets minus liabilities equal equity. What the co-op owns, what the co-op owes, and what the co-op owes its members. And you can do a little algebra to you figure this, right? such as equities equals liabilities and equity, different things like that, but it's the same idea. What do you own? Your assets that can be turned into cash. Who do you owe that money to? Your liabilities. And what is the center ownership stake left over for members? Equity. So you want to make it balanced. If this 40,000 assets is not equal to the assets, sorry, if 40,000 minus 20,000 doesn't give you 20,000, it's not working out, right? So it has to balance. So you might have assets equal liabilities and equity, 40,000, 40,000, or 40 minus 20 equals 20. The equation is balancing. So again, this is something you become familiar with over time, but it is the basic tools you will use to capture value in your business. So you want to learn at least these two. There's one more called cash flow, but we're going to look at these two. Sometimes people call their budgets the cash flow. They use the income statement structure, right? What money coming in, what money is going out, and they look at it on a year-to-year basis. We look at 2020 versus 21, and then we look at some of the percentages, increase, decrease, or we might do it on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, weekly basis, whatever we want, right? But we look at it over time and see how things are changing. And then we communicate that to our members. A financial statement, whether it's a budget, income, or balance sheet, is a story of how money is operating in business. And you've got to make that crystal clear to the other members, right? We're spending 15% on cost of goods. Labor cost is 50%. Oh, that's a lot. Expenses are 20%, and our profit is 15%. What can we do to shift resources to areas where it's yielding very low amounts of value to areas where it can yield higher amounts, right? How do we shift resources to increase the productivity and yield of them, right? Moving them from lower areas of productivity and yield to areas of higher productivity and yield. So this is how you capture value, right? We looked at the value proposition. This is looking at what value you're proposing, the value chain, how you're going to deliver that value, and then these budgets and financial statements, which help you capture value. Maybe you want to expand beyond just thinking of those 3 layers in your business model. So you create a more complex framework. You look at what's going on economically with our business. Do we share benefits? Do we create equity? Are we using collective ownership and shareholding? Are we connecting economic entities together, building financial sustainability? What's our governance looking like? Are we building a common vision, using participatory decision-making, sharing ownership model, right? What's going on socially? Are we trying to give opportunities to marginalized communities? Are we trying to empower worker voice, create decent job conditions? What's going on environmentally? Are we practicing sound water use, avoiding pollution, conserving biodiversity? You might create these additional considerations for other values you have that you're trying to uphold, whether it's financial, governance, environmental, and then you might map it. This is a tool I've worked with other entrepreneurs on, so they can see the areas that they are trying to improve or innovate in as it pertains to their business model. So there's lots of ways to engage your business model. It's still going to engage those key questions of who you're serving, what you're providing to them, how you're providing it, and why is it going to be effective? How are you going to capture that value? So ultimately, you have to think about what's valuable. And you also have to think about what's valuable for your members, for your customers, for your community, right? How will you co-create, deliver, and capture value to these various stakeholders? That's what the co-op business model assignment is about. It's really about nuancing your idea of value and making sure every one of your stakeholders have it, right? And this might go beyond these stakeholders. It might include investors and donors and lenders and things. So with that, I'm gonna help you guys enjoy the rest of the afternoon by concluding, right? So if you want to follow up on this, you can check our website. We've got playlists on YouTube with other content. We've got a monthly newsletter called the Co-op Monthly. And we've got these tools that I mentioned today. The Co-op Design Canvas from last class, the Business Model Canvas that we saw today for the Co-op, and the Value Proposition Canvas from a website called Strategizer. And if you want to follow up on this, we'll have office hours weekly on Wednesday. Next week, I'll be out of the country, so not available. But every week until this class is over, you can show up, you're invited, and we can talk through some of your issues. Other folks are usually there listening in, or maybe it's just you, and you get the hour or 15 minutes or whatever you like to yourself. You want something more in depth, you have a co-op, you're really looking to get some coaching, schedule an intro call. Click on this link, you complete a form, and we'll work with you to help you achieve your goals. So with that, I'll leave it alone and invite any other questions that folks have.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you.